Can you see the poster on the screen? Yeah? Okay. Cool. 6 years ago, I started to be an independent. And I realized I was pretty bad at managing my cash. I wish I knew something like Agicap solution to handle that at the time. Because the first year, I think I let too much cash into my business account, and the taxman was really happy with me. Then the next year, I decided to go on vacation with my whole family. We are 6 of us. And we went to ski for the first time of their life. We went to Greece. It was fun, best year ever. But then it took me 4 months to pay the taxman and to end up my year. So I wish I knew how to change that. My name is Thomas Pierrein. I'm VP of Engineering here at Agicap. And I'm really happy to make that talk with you.
Yes,
Caroline.
so I'm Caroline, and I'm a backend developer here at Agicap. I'm really happy to be here too, and yeah, thank you. So to be able to get a relevant tool to help Thomas run his company and take good business decisions, let's look at what we need.
Please.
So, yeah. Okay, so first we will need to calculate the cash balance. Okay, it's good? Yeah? Okay. We'll need to calculate the cash balance, for a company. So to do that, we need the bank transactions. So they may come from the different company bank accounts with different formats and everything like that. You can see here on the screen, in red are the cash outflows. This is outgoing of my bank account, so it's leaving my account. And the green is what is coming to my bank account.
So
okay.
Taxman is red.
Generally, yeah. Okay, so they can be categorized following the client's needs. So here you can see, for example, travel expenses. So clients may choose their categories depending on their business. Then, so once we have that, we will be able to calculate the sum of inflow and outflow transactions to get the dark green and dark red columns here. This is what is actually going in or out of my bank account. So this already happened in the past, right?
This is for real. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. But also we can try to forecast the future. And to forecast the future, we can use two different things. So first, we can use expected transactions. What we call expected is usually information that is coming from an external system, such as an accounting software or a CRM. For example, here, if I plug in my CRM, I will be able to get all the future sales that will happen in the system. And so this I know will happen, but it's partial, because I do not track here the rent, the salaries, or this kind of information. So to forecast the whole business of the company, we can set, user forecast, so general forecast. For example, I know that my rent is €1,000 a month, and I know it will be the same for the next month. So this is, it allows us to predict the future. However, there is also one common use case that is, in most countries, there is some kind of VAT, a tax that is collected by the state, and so to be able to have reliable forecast, we need to estimate that too. So to do that, we can set a rate on categories. As we said before, we could assign transactions to categories. And once we have this rate, we can sum all the transactions in the categories, multiply by the rate, and get the estimated VAT for a period. So that's it. Now we have our main graph with our forecast. And so we can also do some more thing with cash flow information. We can build custom dashboards that will be used for the user, either internally to take business decisions or externally to show bank partners, investors, and to show some specific information. So we will also need to build some graphs and KPIs to be able to do that.
And this is kind of specific per industry.
Yep.
So like that, if I'm restaurant owner or if I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it can be customized, and that's why it's called custom dashboard. Okay. Also, there are some other use cases. So some clients, they may have companies with bank accounts in different countries. So in that case, we will need to show one graph for unifying all currencies. So that is not really easy to do, and we will need to deal with currency rates and that kind of stuff. This is something that we will look at later. And last use case that we can have, or not the last, but at least the big use case, is cases where clients have companies, but that could be seen as different entities. So what we call an entity is a logical view. For example, here, if there is a bakery that has 2 stores, we can see each store as an entity. And so we can build this graph, this cash flow information for each entity individually, and then consolidate it at the company, general company level. So this is also something that we will have to take into account. Okay, so now that we know all the problematics that we have, let's look at the solutions that we can offer. And let's go to the context map.
So this is a context map. Obviously, we are dealing with potatoes everywhere and relationships among those potatoes. This is potatoes. Don't try to read it. We will zoom for your own covenants. Maybe we will start, Caro, first step with Agicap.
Yes. So when a prospect is actually coming to Agicap, we will first need to know their organization, the way their company is shaped and everything like that. So this is all in the business definition part. Okay. Also, we want to show them what it's like to use Agicap on a daily basis. So we have this demo part where there is mock data and default graphs and templates and things like that.
Industry, in which industry are you working for?
Yep. And finally, we need to track their subscription, so their trial period, who is the paying user, generate an invoice, and all of this. So this is in the sales and subscription part. So now we are talking about parts and oval shapes. Actually, they are called contexts. And so a business bounded context, is a context that is limited by the definition of the concepts inside. So that means, like, if I take an example, the invoice that we generate in the sales and subscription part, this is something that we have in this context, but the word invoice could also be used elsewhere, such as if a client wants to import their invoices in the system to get paid and to do maybe reminders or things like that. So really, the words inside of the bounded context help us define the context.
So same names, but different behaviors depending on the boundary we are working within.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and while we are at it, let's see the arrows. So here we did something a little unconventional, but the arrows, they represent the data flows. It was clear to us to highlight this relationship this way, and that's why we represent it like that, but usually it's not that way.
It's not part of the context map per se, but we found it very useful for tonight.
Yes. Also, you can see the U and the D. So the U means upstream and the D means downstream. And what is important here is that the upstream usually has the power over the relationship. So, for example, the business definition will tell the demo context how to expose or share the information. Okay. So, for example, the industry is taken from the demo context to the business definition, the data, and it's business definition who has the upper hand when dealing with this relationship.
Okay. Okay for everyone so far? Yeah? Great. Let's move to the next step. The next step is to connect to the world, actually. So we are on the left, we are multiple banks, a whole ecosystem of banks. We need to connect to basically all the banks that are existing in the country where our customers are working in. So we have a big, we say a product line. It's much more than a potato, but for tonight it's simply a potato that we call data integration. These are the people that are doing that job, and an important part of that job is to deal with the complexity of the external world. Like Julien was saying with the train systems and things like that, we need to integrate with everything. So, and usually banks like to break API also a lot. So there's a challenge in terms of time to market, and reason why they are put here what we call an ACL, anti-corruption layer. It's like with a river metaphor, when you are upstream, and if I'm downstream, if you throw some garbage in the river, I will receive it, because I'm downstream, you know. So sometimes you need to put some safety net just before you, in order to collect the garbage of the others, and an ACL is working a little bit like that. So the ACL here is to filter out every specificity, every exotic stuff coming from the banking ecosystem or the accounting ecosystems, in order to end up with a pivotal model, kind of model that please us for the rest of Agicap cash flow. So that's it. They also expose an open host service and a published language here. It's an open API for our customers that are really specific needs or exotic needs to integrate with us also if they want. And the kind of concept we have data integration is about connection, account. Also they expose through an API, open host service also, and published language, information about either treasury, so banking transactions, something like that, or accounting kind of things like invoices, and that's it. Still clear so far? Yeah? So next step.
Yeah, so getting the cash flow oil. So here first, let's concentrate on the small context, that is the specific imports. What is interesting, so this context, the goal is really to get Excel imports from the customers. So they will send it, and automatically it will be transformed to what we need to have in the transaction. What is interesting here is that at first it was separated on the side, but now we have more products connecting to data integration, and these products, they also need the information from the specific imports. So that's why we are thinking also to move that back into data integration. As for the transaction refinement, so the goal of this context is really to prepare and refine the transactions so that they are ready for cash flow management. So this deals with paid transaction, that's the one that already happened in the banks, and expected transactions that will come in the future. For these transactions, we can do several actions, like split them. So, for example, if I paid my suppliers for food and tables because I'm a restaurant, maybe I will want to separate these two items into two different transactions. So, if I did one wire transfer, I can split it into two parts and then categorize each part properly in the system. So that is an example. And also there is the reconciliation that helps us match a paid transaction to an expected one, so that it's not counted twice in the cash flow management systems.
You were expecting a payment in the future, then you received maybe before, and then you don't want to take into account twice.
Yes.
So you need to reconcile, you need to... Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, as we said, there is a big categorization part. So this can be done either manually or with a classic algorithm or with a machine learning algorithm. So this is all the idea of the transaction refinement context. Yeah, so now we want to distribute the oil. So we have pipelines. Here you can see big arrows. These transactions are really fueling, the cash flow monitoring context, the consolidation context, and the custom dashboard context. The transactions will be exposed through one data model with the open host service that you see here. So this is really the API exposed to all the customers. While we are talking about customers, you can see the sup and cus on the arrows. So this is a notation for supplier and customer. So the supplier will supply information to the customers, but the customer will be able to ask for changes in the way it is supplied. That's why it's this notation. And also you can notice that the context receiving the information are all conformists. So if anything moves in the transaction data model, the other context will be impacted and will have to change as well.
Okay, so now we have distributed the cash flow oil. Let's dive into the core domain where cash is king. We have many bundled contexts within that core domain. We have cash flow monitoring with basically, we'll zoom on top of that just after. We have forecasting, context, and consolidation. We will see that by zooming on them. First, cash flow monitoring. The mission statement of that context is basically to follow consolidated cash flow status of one entity, one shop, one whatever they call behind that entity in real time. So to do so, we have the challenge of the multi-currency that you were talking earlier. So we have another context which is multi-currency, which aim to convert and store amount between across currencies. So we have a concept of currency, currency pair, cross currencies, etc., etc., and we get the information out of it from a partners or from a set of partners. So we put some kind of ACL, remember the safety net, so that their model, their specificity won't enter into our kingdom here. But since basically these are the same teams working on that, we didn't put so much effort for this isolation, and we are conformist. That's fine, because so far that's fine. Maybe tomorrow we will change that. But that's it. So on the cash flow monitoring, what you can see, you have paid, expected, KPI also. You have cash flow balance, cash flow variations. This is part of the cash flow monitoring, and we can see there is a SK on that, which is a shared kernel. Shared kernel with the forecasting. Forecasting bundled context here is to see the future cash flow status based on scenarios also. So you have concept like scenarios, gap to forecast, VAT forecast, stuff like that. And to have some VAT estimation, we are relying on another bundled context, which is the VAT. Here, which aims to go to estimate VATs based on collected VATs, deductible VAT. It's depending on the country of the customer, depending of the regulation, lots of different stuff. So far, you can see an SEL, an anti-corruption layer here. So far, when we were talking about SEL, it was to protect Agicap bundled context against the outside world. In that case, it's funny, it's to protect the VAT, the new bundled context, from the previous VAT modelization within our legacy. So it's an anti-corruption layer among us, but very useful, actually. So when I was talking about cash flow monitoring and forecasting, it was for every time for one entity, maybe one store for one company. Or we have more and more customers that have more than one store, more than one legal entity, branches, umbrellas, whatever. If they are getting bigger, they have more complicated structure, I would say. So the need to have a consolidated view for all their entities, to have a consolidated view of the cash flow, is handled that by the consolidation model context. So we are sharing between consolidation and real-time monitoring a shared kernel for some time computation stuff, but also we are separate ways in terms of KPI. The KPI of the consolidation, the KPI of the real-time monitoring are, separate ways so far.
Yes. And so now we can build the custom dashboard that we were talking at the beginning. So this dashboard is really getting information from the other context and is conformist to the model exposed by the other context. This context, the goal is really to help the user share some information about its company, so either to take a decision internally or, as we said, to present to banks and investors. In this context, everything is about series, charts, dataset, comparison period, and everything like that. So it's really helping to build this dashboard.
And what is really interesting that they are conformist for and receiving information for every other basically context that we have. So that was it for the big picture of the Agicap cash flow monitoring. But this is not all.
Yes. So actually, we did this work for here for the cash flow monitoring and forecasting product. Linked to the data integration one, but we could build other context maps, for example, for the cash collection product, which allows clients to get paid when there are late invoice and stuff like that. And also for the accounts payable products, which allows clients to schedule their supplier invoices and payments.
So yes, we can. We have other context map, and we will not have all night. So we will stay like this just for the cash flow. It's really an important tool, I think, because it helps us to gather product people, tech people, to have discussions about functional architecture, about what is it logical to collect manual transaction here instead of feeding the golden source there, or so it's really helpful, and it's also help us to define a better organization to support and to sustain our business. Because with context map, there are many benefits. First is to tackle complexity. At the very first sight, you can see, okay, to manage cash flow monitoring, as I was 6 years ago, it's a simple topic. Okay, no, it's more complicated than that, and more you dig, and more you discover complexity. So to tackle complexity, divide and conquer strategy is really helpful. Also to align our mental model. When we are talking between the product people and the tech people, and the CS, customer success people, and the support people, bon, you understood? You understand my point? It's to share a common ground to have these discussions.
Yes. So the goal of context is to get autonomous, so that their internal changes will not impact the other context. However, autonomy does not mean isolation. So the goal is for this context to talk to each other, to have a relationship, and for a fluent organization and a good flow of work and discussions, and to prevent conflicts, it's really interesting to qualify these relationships and to talk about maybe these patterns that we showed previously, such as the supplier-customer one, or the conformist, or the ACL, the open host services, and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the qualification of the relationship that is also very important.
And last but not least, it's really helpful to adjust our organization. If you want to have an organization that helps your business to grow and to be have a nice time to market, you don't want situations where every time you need to add a new feature, you have to synchronize with 7 teams and say, do that little bit of job here, do that little bit of job there, and then synchronize our watch for the delivery. This is a nightmare. This would be a nightmare. I already seen that once, so it exists. And domain-driven design and context maps and all this helps us to have, yes, place for more autonomy. And if you can bind your own organizations and to align it regarding your domain, then it's a nice advantage. And reason why also we really like domain-driven design here in Agicap. This is one of our common ground, I would say. Okay, that's it for us. Thank you very much for your attention. Do you have questions? Or do you want to drink? One question? Oh no, drink. One drink here. One question? No, one drink? Okay. No? One question.
Do you build the context map once you have arrived in Agicap, or was it no?
For Caroline or for both of us?
I think there was already context map before I arrived 1 year and a half ago.
I arrived 1 year ago, and they have lots of stuff like that. This is a more concise, and I should have added disclaimers at the very beginning. There are some simplification. I hope my colleagues won't throw me stones for that. This is just to simplify the story. But we have various versions of that, of course.
Yeah, and I will add that it evolves over time, so it's not static and changes a lot.
This is the most important, of course. And for me, it's a communication tool. So it's important not to have too many details in order to sustain discussions with lots of people.